You need warm up time. All right, let's look at some movement. I had a couple good videos and I just airdropped them to me, but they all came up sideways. That happens sometimes. So we got some on here, but I'm also missing a few bits. Issa, your squat was one of the ones that came up crooked, so we'll look at it next week. I think that was you, the video you sent me, right?
I didn't think I sent you my squat.
I got something from you. I sent it's somebody squatting. It came out weird though. Like it didn't. The text notification didn't
Oh, I did.
happen.
It's sent via iCloud. I don't know what that was, but that's what
Yeah,
it
me
said.
neither. It by the way, it doesn't tell you. Actually, it's still one button. It doesn't tell you. So I just happened to like bump your thread and it opened, and then like the video came up.
Oh,
All right, so. But anyway, I've got your slot for next week. Sorry, just transition some. This was a Technique Tuesday I put for the gym. I watched the video later and it gets the point across, but I want us to look at it from a coaching point of view. We're going to look at three muscle up scaling options that kind of get increased in complexity. So let's look at the first one. The first one's feet on the ground, just a straight low ring transition. Let's look at it. Let's see. Good job, Nate. Bad job, Nate, or whatever cue you would give me. What do we think of that one?
the
Good
positions.
job, Nate.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I would say good job, Nate, on that one. I think Issa was about to say the positions are good.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I see my fist bump here, rings are tight. I keep the rings tight on the transition. If I was gonna be really nitpicky with myself and this was the level 4, go ahead, D. I know you see something. You're nodding your head in agreement.
Your shoulders could have been a little bit lower. Like you did it on the way down, but not on the way up.
Like that range of motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could have helped. I would definitely look at if someone's doing low ring transitions that they're transitioning real high because I want them to transition low to mimic when they get like their first muscle up. So yeah, I don't disagree with that. But one of the things, like if this was a level 4, and I'm gonna cue and be really on with everybody. I like all the positions, like Issa said. The one thing I don't like is I would like to see the torso being a little more vertical, just a hair. Just because if I transition and I'm that far in front of the rings actually in the air, there's a good chance I don't stop myself and I fall. So that's just a very minor, just torso from here to maybe here, just to have, be in a little bit better of a support position. Real nitpicky there, but I agree with you guys. Overall, good job. If I'm doing this and person next to me is doing something, it's probably going to be the person next to me that needs to be triaged. Let's look at the second. One more to this. Sorry. Let's look at this guy.
Your hands were out. They never
Yeah.
came in.
100% agree. This would need to be corrected and coached,
Hmm.
right? And even like watch my look where my elbows are. Like hands off the body here, elbows like flare out even. And if we're looking on this, like the dynamic part of it, I'm like, hell yeah. Like now we're looking like this real dynamic mimicking of a low ring muscle up. But like we know me, I'm gonna stick it and I'm gonna get out. But if I have a member doing this and they're coming through, right, and the hands are out here, one, they probably don't possess the skill yet to have the hand slide and transition to actually get through. We've seen a lot of people get here and not be able to get through. But when they do get through and they stick it, being this wide, what are you scared of? That accidental iron cross that happens
Mhm.
on like someone's like first muscle up get through, right? So I'd be very, very nervous as a coach that one, they're gonna end up pulling out here and not even be able to turn it over. But then when they did turn it over, because they're so separated, one arm's gonna shoot out and they're gonna completely lose that muscle. And it's not even a question of like, oh, they're gonna fail the muscle up rep. It's like, are they gonna dislocate their shoulder when their arms shoot out and they fall, basically? So what would you cue let's say we're in the middle of Amanda. What are you gonna cue me here on this one?
Keep your hands closer.
Yeah. Keep your hands close. Maybe I want you to try to scrape all of your ribs more, your knuckles, like anything that's gonna get me tighter there. Something that I'm looking at here, if I'm have an athlete doing this, right, and they're fist bump, close, get through, and then I have an athlete that advances here, I want to see that same position. Sorry, I fucked that up. I want to see that same position. So you could potentially even argue that if I can't get there when you're cueing me, that maybe we need to make this scale a little easier so I can get through the action. So good catch on that one, guys. And then let's go last one. What do you guys think?
Same thing, hands didn't come together.
Same thing, and I would argue that it gets actually worse. Like, look at my pull in the position and see the difference. They're even further out than
Yeah.
this one was. They at least touched my ribs. This one doesn't even, I don't think, I did too. I didn't even know I did too. This one doesn't even touch my rib.
So you noticed
with-
this after it was posted?
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna be super honest. I noticed it immediately, but I was at home and it was 10 p.m. and I had to get it posted because I get paid for these posts.
Okay.
So it was like another Nate in the world, and you guys is gonna maybe knock me in your head about it, but like it got the point across to what I want to get the point across and to give some people some muscle up scaling ideas. Because what I didn't want to happen tomorrow is we do Nasty Heroes. That's what we have programmed, and I've got, 2 athletes in class doing ring muscle ups, and then I've got the other 8 doing like ring rows and push-ups. Like I didn't want that to happen. I wanted there to be some ideas about how do we get on this low weights and stuff.
Can you explain what the box does?
This makes it a little tougher. Let's go back because this is actually a good moment to show. We talked about this drill a while ago. I'm gonna slow-mo the box. Watch my hips on this box, right? Hips are closed. I pop my hips open. That helps me get momentum, and then I go through. So you guys remember when we were talking to Gina about the bar drill, about popping your hips and learning how to do that? It's basically doing the same thing, but on the rings.
Mhm.
So, but I have a question then. Because it seems like when you're getting into, when you're popping your hips are, or your legs are higher than your torso almost, or they're almost like on the same plane. Wouldn't you want to have your torso above your legs?
Because it's not like realistic on the high ranks.
Right.
If my legs were straight, I'm pretty much in a hollow position, right? So it's not that my torso's under.
I mean, but it should be like kind of like this rather than be like this or this.
Do that again with your arm. What's my torso? My fingertips? Your fingertips?
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be a little angled. I'm also going to tell you, I did this off a higher box before I dropped the box lower, and it became substantially harder. And I was like failing a rep and hitting a rep, and I wasn't about to do that on a video either. So I lowered the box to this height. I think with this drill, like for the position of like what you're talking about with the body, yeah. But like, why am I going to do this drill?
Just so you're more aggressive, because you got to be more aggressive.
Yeah, and like what's
Learn how to
part
use
of
the
the
hips.
like that's kind of like nature number 2, to be honest. Like the hips like does definitely help, and I can take that away for like Gina's case when we talked about that on the pull-up bar. That was my intent for her, was learning how to use the hips. But like if I'm gonna put somebody on these low rings here, part of my intent is to, okay, I taught them this perfect skill of the transition here. Now let's actually increase some intensity and get the transition faster there. So now the transition is mimicking an actual ring muscle up.
You don't have so much, like, you're not using your legs as much as like on the
Yeah,
floor.
and I want the person to develop this skill of being able to get comfortable with
themselves up.
going through that transition quickly into the support position. Because even though my legs are on the box, even in the support position, I still have to have some prerequisite upper body strength to actually support myself in the catch too. So I'm basically like, this drill is just helping me get more dynamic and closer to the feeling of turning over an actual ring muscle up. And then the jumping one too, because you can argue, well, that's not the right body position either. Like if I'm actually doing a kick, like my feet would be swinging more out in front and higher, right? But this now gets harder. I've got to be more aggressive, and now I have all body weight in the receive. So it's bridging the gap from that low ring, trying to be perfect with this skill, to getting more intense with turnover in the sport. That's really like, at least for me, why I'm gonna have athletes do this.
I have a question for Justin.
Okay, you
Today
Jose,
we had
Jose, you asked, and then Justin, you say your thing.
Jose, I think you're gonna take me down the path I was gonna ask, but go ahead.
I saw today we had a gymnastic course, and I saw Justin's problem was putting the hip higher in order to do the transition. And then the coach Eric brought you to the GHD to do leg raises, and I was like, what a weird thing, but interesting.
Was it ring muscle?
Yeah, ring muscle. So I wanted to ask you, what did he say to you?
So yeah, Jose, you took me down the path I wanted to go, because we had the gymnastics class this morning, and so I was trying to do the transition of what you're suggesting, of like what Gina was trying to do, was like get that powerful hip explosiveness and more of that horizontal position, and I just wasn't getting it. So Eric took me over to the GHD machine, and I was in a prone position, so my belly down, and I was grabbing part of the GHD where my stomach was on like the hip rest position. So I was like almost I was facing opposite of how I would do the GHD.
You got into a reverse hyper position. You guys know what reverse hypers are? Okay,
exactly. Yeah. So it was reverse hyper. And so he had me basically come down, so hip flexion as my legs came down, and then I would like Superman explode my legs up into like that Superman position with like explosive like glute engagement. And that's what he was telling me, Jose, is like as the legs come down, as soon as they come down and you hit your in range, then like Superman, but really focus on glute engagement as the hips then come up or the legs come up. And I didn't have time to apply it on the rings. I had to run, but like that was kind of like a game changer that I wasn't feeling when I was trying it on the rings before.
And part of my thought with that too is I'm gonna like, tell me if my head's in the right spot. When you also get that momentum, it also kind of lets you feel like maximum speed and momentum as well, right?
Yeah.
Versus I know you guys have been around me when someone kips, and I'm like, stop being so soft. Like, get aggressive kip, like collide, like let yourself rip the band-aid off and move. Like that, I think would be a really good translation into trying to get people to understand that as well.
And it took me a while. It took me at least like 7 or 8 reps to figure out what he was trying to get me to do.
Like your first couple were so controlled, and then by the last ones, you were like, go.
Yes, exactly.
That makes sense to me. Yeah, I like that. I think it definitely would ripple effect in the transition, because sometimes I watch people kip, especially on ring muscle ups, and it's like, yeah, you're going through the motion, but you're not applying this power. And we want this power, and we want inertia to help us. You know what I mean? We want to generate all this force in the direction. So that's a clever, I don't even know what to call it, skill.
You know, because I've seen videos of people doing normal like sit-up, GHD sit-ups, and say, hey, just the way that you squeeze here to get up, that's what you should squeeze up there. But I'm like, not really, but I understand like putting the head through the rings, but not really to get the hip higher. And it was complete. It was on the opposite. It was like that. I don't understand what is Eric saying to Justin to do that.
Cause it's like what he explained to Justin's actually happening, like when he goes back into the glute squeeze, that's actually gonna get him that big tense arch, right? And if he gets more intense and more aggressive there, it's gonna give him more, it's gonna give him more to come forward with and then pull up, but it's also gonna give the understanding of, okay, this needs to be as tense as it needs to be, so does this. Like, am I kind of getting that right? Justin?
Yeah, and it helped me with the timing of figuring out of when I really need to hit that explosiveness, because I was getting that natural coming down, and I would get a little bit of a swing back, but then before I wasn't like exploding up, so I was kind of getting like limited lift, and then
It taught you, it taught you how to take the slingshot and not pull it back a couple inches, but pull it back so that thing fires.
yes, yeah,
That's how,
Mm,
that's my
I think you can use
non-CrossFit.
that. I think you can use that for toes to bars or
Hundred
chest.
percent.
You can use
Like
on
farmer
everything.
pull-ups. Yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah, you should have the same tension. It's just like on a ring muscle up, you're gonna be further back with it because your kip is initiated by your legs more rather than on a pull-up bar. It's not gonna get that far back. Like you're gonna be limited on your spacing. But
But
yeah,
it
for
helps
sure.
you feel what you should feel with that glute engagement.
Yeah. I think it clicks the engagement, but it also clicks the like momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna actually play with it just for shits. Not today because my hands rip, but tomorrow when I'm forced to actually get on the rings, I'm gonna play with that a little bit too. But yeah,
This,
it makes
you know,
sense.
this is the reason why I like dropping into different gyms and see different coaches, because you get cues like Nate's the ring thing. I had no idea. This is the first time I've heard of it. And this is the first time I've heard of you guys saying the GHD for the glute engagement.
Yeah, because I've never used it, but it makes total sense.
Of course.
It definitely, I think clicks. Um,
The one thing he did say though that was a little bit different for being on the rings is that he told me to not be as active in my shoulders. I
no,
was,
they should be super relaxed.
yeah, he was like, relax them more. And I was like, oh, okay. So that made a
Yeah.
difference as well,
Have
give
you,
me some more space.
I don't know that I explain this really well as a coach sometimes, but like we want active shoulders on the pull-up bar because it's a shoulder-driven kipping motion. The rings, the kipping
legs.
motion's not shoulder-driven. Yeah, it's legs and body. And if there's too much tension in the shoulders, it actually ends up hindering us a bit. And also like when you're stringing reps, from what I understand, if you're trying to be tense, you lose a lot of power and you actually risk like pulling something if you're not relaxed with it. I always tell people if that was a joint or a hinge and there was no musculature, like that's how your shoulders should essentially let yourself move on the rings. Does that make sense? I don't think I explained that really well.
No, that makes sense. But and I'll mention one more thing that he gave me a tip on that was kind of like, oh yeah, makes sense. I haven't been trying or doing it. Is as you are coming through into the arch, open up more through the arms, and even turn the hands out. And I think I was keeping it pretty narrow. I was turning my hands out, but I was keeping
Give
it.
you more space.
Yeah.
I would say that one is a very individualized thing. Like if I have someone with really good shoulder flexion, if I can keep them tighter, they're actually going to become snappier. Or if I have somebody with tight shoulders, that wideness is going to actually let them get into the position we need to get in. Just like an overhead squat, right? Like if I'm training a competitor and I can get that guy into a narrow grip overhead squat and that's going to save him shoulder stamina, like we're going to do it. Versus textbook is not that, it's out here. When you guys do move the rings, notice Justin said like if they still face forward. Some people move the rings and they rotate them and they move them. You don't want to do that. You'll lose tension. So I was taught keep the palms facing forward, even if it does open a little bit. There's something to be aware of on that. See what's next. Let's go to a failed lift and see if we can diagnose. play it one more time, then I'm gonna start giving you hints. You want my hint, or do you guys wanna say something?
I want to see it once more.
At first, I thought that the hit goes to the bar instead the bar to the hip, but I'm not sure.
A little bit. I think a little bit. That's something we've worked on, and it has gotten better. I think it's there. Let's drag just that zone a little bit. Yeah, it's way better than he used to be. I'll 100% give him credit there. And I like great position there. He's gotten to a good power, but that bar should scrape right up the shirt, not come totally away from the shirt. Look how far away it is. So it's definitely loopy. And I definitely think there is contact forward. So spot on to say.
I think his turnover, his transition was a little bit slow. Maybe like you could have a faster.
So why
Um,
is that?
once-
Why is that slow? I don't disagree with you. Why is it slow?
Because it's heavy.
100%, you're on the right track, right? Why would the turnover be heavy? I want to make you guys really think here because it's the same thing with the clean.
He's
I'm
not
told.
getting under it enough.
Not necessarily. That can be part of it, but not in this case right now. Look at the disappointment in that position. It's so upset. That was PR.
But I think it's like two things. Like maybe if he had a faster transition and a faster receive, like him coming down into that squat faster as well.
So it doesn't matter if this was an empty barbell or 300 pounds. The weight of his turnover doesn't change if the bar travels like this. His
Oh, so
bar didn't
because of the
travel
squat.
like that. His
Yeah.
bar traveled like this. So now when that bar is looped around, he now has to move 215 pounds a few inches back for the turnover. It's the same thing for a
Yeah.
clean. If the clean is close, there's no load moved when the bar spins and our elbow goes through. It's the same thing on the snatch. There is weight moved if the bar gets away from us. Now we literally have to move mass to turn over into it. So that's why you see the turnover not being very quick. It's because he literally had to move 200 plus pounds left and right. In his case, it would have been back right to get it overhead into position.
So
That's
if you
part
try
of
to
it.
fix the bar path, that could fix the turnover.
It's 100%. So if you fix bar path and he brushes through close, that turnover now is no longer moving load left to right. And now it's just barbells are meant to spin, the barbell spins and he sticks. Why when you watch really, really good Olympic weightlifters and snatchers, their turnover at 95 pounds and their turnover at 300 pounds looks exactly the same because they're not moving weight side to side. It's only moving weight up and down and barbell spinning well. Both of you guys are spot on. I got one more big thing.
I wonder when they're receiving the stance, he's actually
What?
squat stance is that much.
No, I think he's a little wide. 'Cause look at like his pull's great. He technically could have been a power, right? I don't think he was in a. I don't think he was in a super strong position here. I do think you're right, Jose. I think it was a hair wide. But what were you gonna say, Dee?
That there's something weird with his takeoff, and I think
Now you're talking.
the weight is just shifted forward. Like,
Mhm. That's 100% what I see.
yeah.
I mean,
I
he's
think-
just really low. He's really squatty there.
But I think that position for Jason right here, right? I think that's a really good setup there. Like you're right. This is low. He would need to come up, but he does. He brings it up a little bit. He's not a. How tall is Jason? Yeah, around 6 foot.
Maybe,
Taller
yeah.
is he taller than me? He's
I
maybe a
think
hair taller than me. But he's a little bit more like limby. Like he's a little lankier when it comes to the limbs. So I think his actual setup here is like not, it's a good setup. His shoulders are in front of the bar. And what cues me off is even though his butt is a little low, look where his knees are. They're just slightly over. It's not like he's in a squat where you ever see people get in a squat and the knees are way in front of the bar. That's
Mhm.
kind of what I'm looking at to double check him. If he takes off well, the knees will slide back out of the way and they won't prompt the problem. But watch when he does take off. You can tell that the weight shifts a little bit, like the butt comes up a little too fast versus the shoulder, and he almost starts to get to parallel. And I can't see his heels here. It doesn't, watch his heel when you can see it. Look at his weight shift back there. So then that does tell me when he broke the floor, there was more weight in the toes than back. I just think his glutes and hamstrings take over. That weight pulls him a little bit, and his quads would have needed to do more work to keep him in that better angle. I think if all that happens, I think when we start to get to this point, it's a little bit of a stronger finish versus he's like literally trying to do a backflip, and that's what pushes his hips forward and fails. I want to see him pull the weight back and him pull it, not it pull him to start. Once we can get that down, then let's start to build from the base up, I would say. But I mean, overall, PR lift, I think it was 215. Like, it's high enough. We just got to not let it pull us. He needs to control it. And I think Jose's spot on with the footwork. If footwork doesn't get there, nothing's going to happen.
So the first thing you would tell him would be to keep the weight on his heels, and then the bar path.
I would work on the lift off first. Yeah, because it's the first thing that's happening in this lift. He has been working on bar path already, and the way I've been programming that for him is we've done a lot of power position snatching, a lot of high hang snatching and hang snatching. So we're not even addressing the pull off the floor in one. We're letting him work on that bar path in one, which it has improved. And then I have him do clean pulls, snatch pulls. I have him do a banded one where I tie the band to the bar and then it's tied to a rig so that's actually pulling the bar away from him. I have him do those to address it. We just got to get those two things together now in the one rep max level. But movement for sure has improved. So yeah, I would start here. I've just had him do that more separately, kind of piecing that together. It's just another example of like, we've said it a million times on this call. When we start to see that load pull somebody, they're in trouble. They've got to always pull it. Like you are its boss, be its boss. I think it's gonna be a handstand. That's pretty good for Elise. I got something pretty quick. You guys notice a pattern in these? Like that one's a pretty good one. It's pretty happy. The next two are not.
Maybe she's trying to kick up too fast. And but like not enough because she's not vertical enough on those first.
And then that one takes off. On the ones where she kicks up and gets her legs stacked, those are the pretty good reps,
Yeah.
right? And like, let's consider where she is here. Like she's building to get this going a little bit, right? So like this first one is what I want to happen. I believe this program was 40 donkey kicks, and I call donkey kick freestanding kicking. So my intent in giving her this wasn't to have her be rocking out, minutes of handstand holding, but my intent is that she kicks up and finds
Finds
these nice little winning moments of like, oh, that was 5 seconds, 6 seconds, and then down. Very, very controlled and finding balance. And then this one's a really tell one. You get to like this one, and the legs just never solidify. It's like they're always moving, and all her reps that she doesn't find it, the legs are in transit. The reps that she gets, look, they got quiet for a second and they're good. And then this one's a really telling one because she gets not that one, sorry, this one. This one's telling because like it gets quiet for a second, and then the moment you see a leg move, this outside leg is gonna move. Everything starts to go. So like a good cue for her and an athlete, and something I look at immediately on handstands is like, what are the legs doing? Are the legs having the time of their lives doing whatever they want up there, or is the person controlling them and giving those legs a task of focus? Can you guys kind of see that little pattern here of what I'm looking at? What's something else you can look at in this? What about the shoulder?
Shoulders, yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, that's something I'm gonna look at too, like immediately with somebody. If like somebody's trying to kick up and do what she's doing, and they're kicking up and they have to go into this massive scorpion because they have no shoulder flexion, I'm like, yeah, man, we're playing a game we can't win at right now. So like looking at some of the prerequisite stuff for this can be really, really important too. I do think though, like that is a really good sign, and you see athletes doing that, give them that cue to be tense legs, like, hey, touch your toes to the ceiling. And I think she should continue to do what she's doing here with it, but with that cue in mind. She has a couple, she's getting close. There's practicing if she's gonna beat me. Did we look at this one? Oh, I think this is an old one. Tell me if we looked at this one.
I think it's older.
I think
I'm
it's
not sure.
older, but I don't think we did it. So I have a weird system here. If I don't mark the video, I only lower the volumes on them if we watch them. So if I see one where the volume's up, then I know we probably didn't do it. Maybe we did. I don't know. Tell me if we did. This one is old 'cause I remember when Mayhem programmed this.
I don't remember seeing that.
No, I don't think we watched it. I feel like we didn't watch it for something to happen to Justin's life because it may make sense now. Do you guys like, let's look at the high pull real quick. I want to talk about that and then we'll get into the rest. Is there anything you guys like notice or like want to happen more here?
It looks like it's going a little bit too high. I don't know if that's
I don't really personally care about that.
wrong things. Yeah.
I don't hate it. Like if he's keeping the bar close, which I like, that's gonna be like my number one. But it almost looks like that one was pretty good. Maybe it's in the muscle snatch. Yeah, I don't care about the height because if Justin, you're hitting a good hip extension and it's just floating up there, like awesome. It kind of looks to me like you do a really good job with these, right? The bar kind of floats. And it looks like it's rocketing up there, right? Do you guys agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
And then watch the muscle snatch. It kind of slows down in here. I almost think if you take the same approach, Justin, that you had with the high pull, and you were just real aggressive with the up, that turnover would become easier. Like when we do, that looks great, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
When we do That was interesting. Let's come back to that in a second. When we do drills that are like, I had somebody do it in my snatch clinic, and it was, I had him do a hang, like a hang high pull, just like you were doing here, and then one hang high pull, and then I had them go power snatch. And the point was, your hang high pull should be exactly what that power snatch is about to be. And what initially happened was the hang high pull was great. The bar floated up, it was real light, and he was like, oh, it's like goes completely weightless, and I don't have anything in the arms. And then you would power snatch. When you go power snatch, just like he was still hitting hip extension, but taking some down on the gears and getting a lot of upper body involved to actually do it. So what it almost looks like to me is you do a really good job on your extension, and that bar goes real weightless, and like why Deanna was like, oh, that thing's going high because it was just floating up there. Like if you were muscling that, I don't think you're muscling it to your chin. Like that's going to be really tough. Apply that same aggressiveness now when it is time to turn over and punch. Like let those drills be the same exact movement pattern as the hole that we're trying to drill to get the hole better. Does that make sense to you guys? Something to look out for people, because there's people that do the drill beautifully, and then for some reason they do the whole thing. I'm like, what happened to the drill? Like that fell apart. Like make that very clear for people.
Like you gotta think, almost think about just doing the high pull and then add the turnover.
let everything happen. Like yeah, after that, yeah, it's kind of like you hear coaches say, like not CrossFit coaches, but like sports. They say practice how you play. Like the drill is the practice here. The snatch is the play, is the game, right? We want to do, this should be the same thing. I have a question about, I don't know if you're gonna remember this about the overhead squat, but let's see. I think those look great. Why did you move your feet in? Did you get cued?
What'd you ask?
Why did you suddenly move your feet in?
Yeah, 'cause that
Watch.
changed everything.
Yeah, like that looked very fluid to me. And like, I'm gonna pause it on the bottom real quick. That looked very fluid to me. I'm gonna tell you just some of the little things I'm gonna look at here. Like maybe the slightest, your knee's on the inside, but it's not like this huge valgus knee. So like it tells me I don't think you're too wide because your hips are opened up. Your torso's vertical, so it's not like you're cranking the shit out of your shoulder. You're extremely stacked. Your balance in the frontal plane here is beautiful. I'm just curious, watch this foot on the outside. Why did you
I
shift
think
in there?
I think I know why. I think I know what I was doing too.
What do you
So
think?
overhead squats, I definitely have a wider stance than my back squat or air squat.
Normal.
Yeah, my normal squat, and I probably was just in the moment being
Trying
like,
to
"Oh, my feet are too wide. I gotta bring it back in for my squat," and I'm just in an
trying
overhead.
to mimic it. Yeah,
Yeah,
because watch, like as soon as you slide that foot in, it all the fluidity goes away. Right at parallel, you're like, "Ugh, I gotta squeeze it.
Hmm.
That's my curious, and it's hard to tell. Like this is a profile view, so like I could see all those really good things like frontal plane, but I can't tell like where are your heels in relation to your shoulders. Because I find, and this is I would say my biggest pet peeve right now in the gym. We've got so many people, and I don't know if it was a coach before me or not, that they have their squat stances like here. It's so narrow, and I've got a couple of them that I've tried to fix, and they're just like, thanks. And they don't care. And you know what? Like if you're that adamant about it and you're not losing neutral spine, but you have, toesy heel, like I'm not gonna sit there and fight people. Like I still keep them every day and they probably get annoyed, but it is what it is. Like one day they'll listen, hopefully. But a lot of people go narrower than they need to. At least I've noticed that at my gym. So like when you look at squat stances, what I think happens is I think they look at their feet, they see their toes V'd out, and they look at their where their toes are, and they go, "That's about my shoulder there." It's heels technically of what we should be looking that shoulder width. So when you guys are setting people up in squat stances, don't get fooled by this because it looks wider, even though it may be out here and it looks wide because the toes are out here. Look at where the heels are in relation. That's actually your point to line things up. And I've explained that to people, and they're like, "Oh, that makes sense," because I thought that was outside of my shoulders. I don't know if you guys experience that. It's a nightmare. Let's go. Let's sneak one more. Not a pretty one here. Not a great angle either. What's your first thought? I think that's
I
tough.
think squeeze your um shoulders back a little bit more, maybe. I think it was
I think it's more than shoulders.
Yeah, it's to keep the tension in the upper back.
The whole thing. It's the
the
whole
whole-
thing. Yeah. Because watch how aggressive I am with actually putting my lats on. Like I'm there, watch the shoulders you crank back. But it's the actual posture, and I think I've come to this conclusion personally as an athlete. I'm gonna pause it right when I go, right? This region for me, this thoracic spine, if I just carry a dumbbell on one side too long, it gets crazy sore. So I've come to the conclusion that I have strong pulling lats and I have a strong like pull and I have a strong erectors, glutes, and hamstrings, but they're not strong for stability. Right. And I think that's why you see me pull this deadlift. The deadlift moves like butter, but this is not stabilized. Right. And it goes back to like, I want stable core, not a pretty core. So like the hollow holds, I hate them. Planks, I hate them. Anything that you make me stop before is my worst nightmare. And it's because like my core is actually bad at doing what the core's job is. Nose the bar, I look like I got a strong core for days.
So and Nate, like what you're referencing is like those hollows, the arches, like that's slow twitch muscle fibers. And then
Terrible.
like the dynamic movement is the fast twitch. And you're probably developing more on the fast twitch side versus the slow twitch, which slow twitch is also like your posture versus fast
Yeah.
twitch.
You're spot on. Yeah, you're 100% spot on. If you ask me to analyze what am I better at, I'm better at explosive speed stuff, right? I'm good at throwing a 215 power snatch over my head, no problem. But then you tell me to do a posture at 245 with or a deadlift at 245 with really good posture, it feels terrible. It's like the hardest thing in the world.
And I'm the opposite. I'm like the endurance. Like even Chris Henshaw was talking about this other day on this video I was watching about how you would like manage a fast twitch versus a slow twitch athlete. And he's like, you just have to understand like a Nate is going to be crushing it in that first 10 seconds. And then you got the endurance guy that's going to be, it's going to take him, he's going to struggle. He has to focus on the first 10 seconds and he's going to do well in those last, 40 seconds, whatever.
A great example is the Imams Mayhem has been doing, and their singles, right? For you guys that don't follow Mayhem, every week we've had either clean and jerk or snatch. It's everything has been singles, and it started off every like 2 minutes, and now it's down to every minute 15. That's my bread and butter. You're giving me just enough time. I can be real explosive. I have no time under tension. I get to drop the barbell and do it again. They're so easy for me. Versus if you took that and turned it into every minute on the minute 10 deadlifts and it had to be perfect deadlifts, I would die. It'd be so hard. So it's good to like recognize those people. Just because someone's gonna look very fit and look very explosive and they're gonna snatch well, clean well, they're gonna do 20 cows on the eco bike in 30 seconds, they're gonna do gymnastics, like those are all very explosive things. Can they go long and slow? Can they hold all of that stuff? Because what would make me a substantially better athlete to slow down, do some long stuff, and do those holds, like tempo, all of that. All of that is torture to me. I hate it. It's because I'm not good at it. So this video, besides like the obvious, like you guys want to see that posture really get better, it's a good example of how we can also look at athletes and kind of analyze them into like what's their weak points, like fast twitch versus slow twitch, and what are they going to be good at? Because I mean, this is 405 with no belt. I've never pulled 405 with no belt, but today was the day I wanted to try, and it looks easy. It's not the movement issue, it's the position and posture issue in
But
my
could it-
point of view.
Could it also be having like tight hips or hamstrings that you can't kind
I do
of
think
get into
that's-
that proper position?
I do think that's part of it. I think if you wanted to like really deep dive into that, this is how I know I can't get into the proper position. Because if you put me in front of level 4 Raiders and give me a PVC pipe and ask me to demo a deadlift, I can demo a beautiful deadlift. I don't love it, but I can. So I know I can get into position. It's not a I can't get into the position problem. It's I don't like the position and I'm weak in it, so it's a hard problem, I would say. So
To
that's
like
that's
hold
why
that position, because you lifted off that, like you got into position fast and you lifted up fast,
you can tell I don't want to spend time down.
right?
It's uncomfortable. What I will say though is I do think you get like my posterior chain tightness. I think it's a whole shit storm, a whole shit melting pot of issues that have happened through the last 10 years. But I also think all of that is so locked up and so tight because I have a weaker anterior chain. Like my hip flexors aren't super strong. My quads aren't as strong as my hamstrings are. Like all of that stuff has to, someone has to do the work and the slack has to get picked up somewhere. So my posterior chain does it. And that's why my posterior chain's always locked up and on overdrive because it's doing more work than it's even supposed to be doing on someone like me. Does that make sense? And that's why you look at for people that are at risk of injury, we have to look at strength imbalances. Like that's why strength imbalances create injuries sometimes, is because you have muscle groups doing jobs that they're really not supposed to be doing, or you have these like smaller muscles doing jobs that a bigger muscle is supposed to be doing. A great example of that is the spinal erectors versus the glutes not turning on. I have a client right now that if I put him on banded side shuffles, monster walks, glute bridges, banded good mornings, and we take the time and like activate his glutes, he's a monster. He can deadlift for days, he can squat for days. If we skip that and we just mobilize joints, he locks up in 3 sets and he falls apart. And it's just because like the bigger muscles aren't doing their job and his erectors take over and they blow up. So I think that's part of my issue with it is it's not just mobility. Like there's a weak point in my lower body, and that weak point also needs to be addressed.
I'll share something else. So I was just reading. I've been reading this anatomy book, and it was referencing. You can look at someone's pelvis position of how they just move through their life daily, and if you're anteriorly tilting your pelvis just in your daily life, you're going to be more anteriorly strong. Like quads going to be taking over more often versus if you're more neutral or even posterior tilt, you're going to be more posterior stronger as well. So you can just look at myself and be like, yeah, he's going to need to really focus more on posterior just because of the way my hips are positioned.
Where they sit. You know, a good example too is like I had this aha moment a few months ago that if you look at my hips, I'm tilted forward. So like the bottom of my hips are gonna pull up on my hamstrings. And I'm like, man, my hamstrings are so tight all the time. And it's partly because of my pelvic tilt. I'm pulling them and I'm stretching
Both
them out
hamstrings,
all the time. And
Right.
then I say like, what's weaker? I just told you guys, my hip flexors, my anterior chain, my quads, all those things. Those muscles are just sitting on slack all the time, not even being activated because I'm tilted and that pelvis is not tilted down for them. So you're spot on with that. If you give me a great example is you can give me toes to the bar. I'll do these massive sets of toes to the bar. And then you have me do a hanging knee raise, which is like uber scaled thing. I blow up on them because my hip flexors just go to hell. So it's like little interesting weird things like that. When you guys find that in your training, like ask yourself the why and the root causes of it, and it'll help you give you more insight into what you may need to work on or where the issue may be, even if you don't have it pinned. Crazy how complex things are. And then you look at, we'll kind of end the call on this note. You look at fitness in 100 words. And you should be squatting, pulling, deadlifting, pressing, holding, all of these things. If you actually follow what Greg Glassman wrote in those 100 words and you're doing all of them consistently, you're probably addressing a lot of your weak points and problems as well through your training. It's just, I think we tend to go to the things we like to do versus tend to skip the L sit hold for today, because that ain't very fun. All right, we're all guilty of that. All right, guys. We'll wrap it up here. You guys have any closing thoughts, statements before we call it a day? All right, y'all. I will see you guys on Tuesday then.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Guys, go get coffee. So that was a big yawn.
Mhm.
See you guys.